Hello everyone, welcome to A Clear Perspective. I'm Serene. Today we are going to start by discussing the most important news of the weekend, which is the G7 summit and its communiqué. This year the G7 is a bit different. The reason is that this summit may have important impacts on 4 countries, the United States, China, Japan and Germany. And among them, the impact on China and Japan is the most enormous. Let's discuss in detail what is special about this G7 summit. And then we will talk about the latest video that has been exposed on the Wuhan virus. This video presents an important fact, which is that Dasic, who is Xi Zhengli's close collaborator and desperately supported the idea that the virus came from natural evolution, was lying. On June 13th, the group of 7 concluded its 3-day summit and issued a summit communiqué at the same time. In the past, the G7 summit communiqué was usually only 1 page, but this year's communiqué is 25 pages long, listing 70 points. The weight of this communiqué is extraordinary. The communiqué covers 8 major sections: the introduction, health, economy, free and fair trade, future frontiers, climate and environment, gender equality, global responsibility, and international action. In each of these sections, the Chinese Communist Party is addressed directly or indirectly. In the communiqué, the CCP is urged to respect human rights in Xinjiang, allow Hong Kong's autonomy, conduct a new investigation into the origin of the coronavirus, and combat forced labor in global supply chains. The communiqué also took the stand for the first time on the East and South China Sea and Taiwan Strait issues, urging the Communist Party to stop the unilateral actions to undermine regional stability. Therefore, we can indeed say that this communiqué reflects the core of the G7 agenda, which is the issue of the Chinese Communist Party. Even the CCP itself has made no secret of this, and the party media has gleefully published an article with the headline, "China may not be a member of the G7, but is dominating the agenda." As we have said in the past, the CCP's party media has always used anti-intellectual and anti-common sense tactics to brainwash and infiltrate the public. And as a result, it has indeed created a group of followers who lack basic common sense and logic. The point that the CCP are trying to make is that if foreign leaders are collectively discussing how to deal with the party, doesn't it mean that the party's position is getting more recognized in the international community and that even the G7 cannot turn a blind eye on us? It seems that the Chinese Communist regime has reached a new level of shamelessness in order to prove to the world that it is important. Even if it becomes the world's public enemy, it has to proudly show its power. This is basically the same line of thinking as Kim Jong-un, who also successfully led the agenda of the UN on nuclear non-proliferation with his missile tests. This unashamed but proud propaganda by the CCP media once again highlights the CCP's consistent practice of being the world's rule breaker. This approach was put forward by the communist ancestor Karl Marx, who said that the old world had to be smashed in order to build a new world. We see that the Chinese Communist regime has been comprehensively undermining almost all the rules recognized by the international community, from values to economic order, and from international law to treaties and agreements among countries. It tramples the rules at will, claiming that they are invalid historical documents when it wants to disobey them. The G7 communiqué emphasizes in the beginning that the global action agenda is built on commitment to international cooperation, multilateralism, and an open, resilient, rules-based world order. This principle and the US-UK's new Atlantic Charter, which we discussed earlier, goes in exactly the same direction, reaffirming that the current rules-based world order cannot be subverted. In other words, the G7 openly rejected the so-called New World Order advocated by the Chinese Communist regime. This was the first blow to the CCP. The second blow came from the issue concerning the Taiwan Strait and the South and the East China Sea. Let's call it the 3 Seas issue. It's the first time the G7 officially included this issue in its summit communiqué. For the CCP, this means that the 3 Seas issue has been internationalized. It's officially listed in an international document, which has the potential to result in concrete actions. So any expansion of the CCP in the 3 Seas will face more opposition and pressure. For Japan, this move is even more important because it was a joint initiative between Japan and the United States. As early as June 8th, the Japanese media Nikkei Asia already forecasted that issues sensitive for the CCP, including the Taiwan Strait, Hong Kong, and Xinjiang, would be introduced in the G7 communiqué. The CCP media forwarded this news right away. It condemned the US and Japan for attempting to incite other countries in the G7 to oppose China. It showed how nervous the CCP was about the situation. It's not just because of the emergence of more opponents on issues such as the Taiwan Strait. There is an important political and military strategy behind it. This is another major development in the normalization of Japan. Remember when Japanese Prime Minister visited the White House and became the first foreign head to meet face-to-face with Biden? The US-Japan joint statement also included the Taiwan Strait. One of the major implications of that statement is that the United States would allow Japan to move toward normalization politically and militarily. Particularly in the military front, Japan is likely to get the approval of the United States to develop more long-range offensive weapons, including light aircraft carriers and other equipment. From this perspective, since Japan and the US joined hands to raise the 3 Seas issue and successfully gained acceptance from other G7 countries, we can say that the G7 has accepted the loosening of restrictions on Japan. The United States already loosened restrictions on South Korea and allowed it to develop medium and long-range missiles to strengthen the strategic deterrence against North Korea and the CCP. But last month, after South Korean president visited the White House to meet with Biden, the US lifted all restrictions on South Korean missiles. We all know that Japan is far more important than South Korea in the framework of the US Indo-Pacific strategy. Japan is not only the initiator of the quadrilateral security mechanism for the Indo-Pacific, but also has a strategic relationship with Taiwan. So, in my personal opinion, this US-Japan motion on the South China Sea and the East China Sea in the Taiwan Strait, which was accepted by the G7, is tantamount to the G7 giving approval to unite Japan as a military ally to the US. This is what I call another big step towards the normalization of Japan. The U.S. current strategy is dealing with the CCP is made up of 2 sub-strategies. The first is U.S. relations with Japan and Australia in the Indo-Pacific. The other is the transatlantic alliance with the key player being the UK. The relations between the US and the UK is really what the transatlantic alliance boils down to. The G7 communiqué was originally drafted in tougher terms, but due to objections from Germany and Italy, the final version was much softer than the G7 foreign ministers' recent statement. For example, the wording on Xinjiang did not mention genocide. It is interesting to note that Germany and Italy seem to be unable to sense the dangers of totalitarian regimes at critical moments, which is in stark contrast to Japan's decisiveness. From this, we can also see that the strategy of the US is completely different from that of World War II. I think that the Indo-Pacific diplomacy led by Japan and the US will become a crucial factor in dealing with the CCP. In addition to the East and the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait, other important sensitive topics worth mentioning in the G7 communiqué are the G7's version of the Belt and Road Initiative and the issues concerning the origin of the virus. Biden and the G7 leaders agreed to launch a new global infrastructure initiative, Build Back Better World, to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. The scale of this plan is too enormous for us to draw any firm conclusions as to how this plan will be implemented. But one thing is certain, which is that the major Western powers have recognized that the CCP's Belt and Road Initiative is no ordinary infrastructure plan. The G7 has launched such a huge infrastructure plan. Regardless of whether the plan is appropriate, it is definitely there to inhibit the CCP. On the subject of virus traceability, we will briefly talk about some revelations made by the news channel Sky News. On Sunday, Sky News aired a world exclusive which revealed that official footage from the Chinese Academy of Sciences obtained by Sky News showed live bats being kept in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They were kept in cages to be used for virus research, and the video even shows a scientist feeding worms to one of the creatures. It was obtained by members of the WHO investigation team and provided anonymously to Sky News. Once again, this revelation proves that Shi Zhengli and Daszak were lying. On December 10, 2020, Daszak tweeted, "This is a widely circulated conspiracy theory. This piece describes work I'm the lead on and the labs I've collaborated with for 15 years. They do not have live or dead bats in them." Daszak's close partner Shi Zhengli has made similar denials. According to a Wall Street Journal report on April 24, 2020, in one of Shi Zhengli's studies, she summarized her 5-year-long study of bats in a bat cave in Yunnan province, and she wrote, "The bats captured for this study have been released back where they were captured." Why did both Shi Zhengli and Daszak lie about the presence of a large number of live bats at the Wuhan Lab? Shi Zhengli is well known for working with bats. It is normal to raise bats for her research. Why would they lie about a normal thing? I think the only reasonable explanation is that they are trying to cover up something. Lastly, we would like to remind our viewers that our platform may be restricted on social media. We would like to recommend the YouMaker platform to everyone. Our videos are available on YouMaker. Please subscribe, and we hope to see you there. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next time.